Well, good morning and welcome once again to NCG, Texas, Mr. Furlow's neighborhood. Got a different Mr. Furlow sitting beside me today, but I tell you what, there's a lot of them around here, so it makes a nice neighborhood. Of course, it's certainly not all about furloughs, and we keep saying that. You know, I don't mind helping, doing my part, populating the planet, but there's plenty of other folks around besides furloughs, and we're interested in everybody because the way we look at things, we're all just one big family, and the goal is to be one big happy family. What do you say?
I agree.
Of course, everyone knows, or hopefully everyone that sees the show on a regular basis anyway, knows this is my son, Stephen. It's always good to have you sitting beside me.
Good to be here.
And I understand you picked a topic for discussion this morning. Am I correct?
No, sir.
What? Oh, my goodness. You mean I've got to come up with something? No, actually, I do have something in mind. There's really I have several things in mind. I mean, there's just, I look at it like this. Life is rich and full. There's plenty going on. There's plenty of good things to talk about. I was having a good conversation with my mom, who's here in the studio with us this morning. Good to have you here, Mom. And you might even be part of the discussion. I won't ask you to come up and speak, but she said she talks too much. Well, now you know where I get it from anyway. But actually, she talks, she doesn't talk too much. She talks enough because she asks questions, she inquires, she learns, very open minded, and I can appreciate all of that. But anyway, we've had some great discussions this week, and one of the things, though, that the direction I think I'd like to go, I'll put it that way, is has to do with a conversation that I had on the Google Hangout, or a Google Hangout that we have on Wednesday nights. And there was something that happened that to me is somewhat, I may be exaggerating here a little bit, but phenomenal. I want to use that term because in my world, it really is. Many people may be familiar with a man that we refer to as Ozzy. And I'm not going to try to say his full name, but his last name is Ramses, I believe. Ramses. I'm getting to know him a little better, and I love getting to know people and talking to people and having these discussions like we do on the Hangouts. But he brought up something in response to a question that was asked, and it caught me off guard. His response caught me off guard. The question was, why does it seem that theists, that is, believers in God, in most cases seem unwilling to sit down and just converse and possibly build a relationship with one who is an atheist? And his response to the question, like I said, it caught me off guard, and that is what to me was so phenomenal. Because I'm sitting here thinking, oh, what would be a good answer for that? I mean, if I've been a Christian most of my life, I've been a believer in God, so what would be my response to that question? And while I was thinking of a couple of different answers, which I will mention here in just a moment, I want to give what his response was. He said that, people of the faith, people, especially when it comes to Christianity, have been convinced that there's a hell. There's a place called hell. And if you don't do things a certain way, or if you get entrapped into a position such as not believing in God or doing the wrong thing or not doing the right thing, then you may end up in this place called hell. And in his estimation, it was that thought, that would be possibly a big reason that a lot of theists would not be willing to discourse and build a relationship with an atheist. And what caught me off guard is I didn't even think about that. It's like I'm not thinking that way anymore, because although most of my life I spent believing that there was such a place called hell and trying to figure out how not to go there. Wanted to make sure somehow or another that I'd covered all my bases so that I wouldn't end up at this place. But I have experienced such, and I'm going to call it growth. That's maybe sticking my neck out a little bit, but I've grown to understand that this is an imaginary place. This was something that was invented to scare people, to try to get people to do certain things a certain way. And I'll just leave it at that. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but it isn't even a part of my thinking anymore. And when I actually ended up thanking him. I said, I want to thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I don't need to forget that. I need to be aware that, yes, it is true. There's a lot of people that still live in fear, not just fear of that place exists, but that if they make a wrong move, even after supposedly doing all the right things, they may end up there. And but let me tell you now where my thinking was going, and I'll bring you into the conversation, because this is not a monologue here. But my thoughts were more along the lines of, and I think this is legitimate also. If you're a Bible believer and you bank on a lot of things that come from the Bible and the way they're taught, it's important that we stress that. There's things like evil communications corrupt good manners, and be steadfast, unmovable. Throwing too many syllables in there. And so it's almost like a fellow told me one time. He said, my mind is like a steel trap. He said, it's rusted shut most of the time. And unfortunately, I think that's the way a lot of theists live. My mind is closed. I have no reason to question anything I believe. It's all right, and that's all that matters. And I'm not going to listen to anything that might endanger my status, my positioning, because, if I allow myself to think too much, I might think the wrong things and fall off into possibly a belief that there is no hell or something along those lines. And, there's also the peer pressure thing, because I'd never really thought that much about it. But for someone who actually, whether by choice or just because they haven't found a legitimate reason to actually believe in some God, they're rejected, that they're automatically in danger of certain things. What a horrible thing to say, actually. But if you take that and put it in the face of believers in God, they do become the rejects of society. And I've even actually heard one particular, I won't name any names, doesn't really matter, but one who is in the atheistic position, say that he realizes that when Christians and probably people of other faiths consider him one who actually knows nothing. He has no correct values, no morality, because that all comes from God. Unless you acknowledge God and invite him into your life, you don't possess any of those qualities.
Well, I experienced something. Well, I've experienced it all my life, I'm sure, but recently with someone who was talking to me about their values and morals and abilities as a Christian, and something to me, or a topic that's just as important or more so than hell. You know, I realize how damaging hell, the ideal of hell and what it represents is. But to me, I guess the way I think about it now is that's a futuristic thing. If there was a hell and we were going there, that's something in the future. I'm not going there right now. It would be when I die. But what's happening right now with the possible problems I may be going through, and this person that I spoke to is having problems with alcohol. And